This is talkSPORT Driving. I'm John Jackson with some of the biggest stories from the world of Formula One in the last 24 hours. And the biggest story by far is that Monaco and the Monaco Grand Prix are going absolutely nowhere when it comes to the F1 calendar. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of discussion over the last few years about whether it has a place on the schedule, given that the streets of Monte Carlo don't get any bigger at all. It's a very small place. You might have been there. You can walk across it in about 45 minutes. Well, the F1 cars just get bigger and bigger and bigger now, obviously until 2026. Which means that if you qualify well, you generally finish well, and there's not a lot of overtaking opportunities. Well, that is not going to change anytime soon. There's a new 6-year deal in place, meaning racing will happen on the iconic streets like they have done since the mid-50s until at least 2031. It's also great news if you're a motorsports fan with a load of money, because it's actually going to move into the first week of June as opposed to the last weekend of May. Now, that is a problem if you're a motorsports fan with a load of money, because it clashes with the Indy 500, which takes place on Memorial Day weekend in the United States. So now, if you got the cash, you can go to Indianapolis, then you can get your private jet straight over to Nice. You can take the short ride over in a taxi to Monaco, and you can take in two of the most iconic races in the world of motorsport. If, of course, you've got the money. And if you like sustainability, you'll like this as well, because it looks like the Grand Prix that would take place in Canada on that weekend is now likely to be paired up with the Miami Grand Prix and make a double header, which is great for sustainability given that they have to ship all the infrastructure from one place to the other. And also, if you're a fan of sustainability, don't forget that the Monaco E-Prix in Formula E next year will be iconic, because it'll be the first time a World Championship, single-seater championship, has raced on 2 different days across a weekend. So 2 E-Prix in the world of Formula E on the streets of Monaco in 2025. Next up, another senior departure from the FIA, the second in a week to leave the governing body of Formula One after race director Niels Wittich left with immediate effect earlier this week. We thought it was of his own accord, but he's since spoken to the German media and very much made it clear it wasn't his decision to leave. Now, Paolo Bassari is the compliance officer, and he's the latest person to leave. That makes it 7 or 8 senior figures in the FIA to have left in the last 12 months. We don't know much about why he's left, but it's not a secret that he didn't really see eye to eye with the FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem. So that's more eyes on the president himself and also the FIA, as there's lots of contentious issues that are currently going on involving the FIA, both on the track and off the track. And finally, some positive news for drivers when it gets a little bit too hot in the cockpit when they're racing in seriously hot places, because a new driver cooling kit's going to be implemented from 2025. We don't know what that looks like at the moment. It's not going to be like a block of ice behind them. It'll more likely be some kind of cool air system that blows cool air into the cockpit. It means that when the race is deemed to be too hot, they can use this piece of kit and keep the drivers nice and cool. It'll be great in Qatar. If you remember last year, drivers were suffering heat exhaustion, and Esteban Ocon was even sick in his helmet, which we want to avoid going forward. So that'll be implemented from next year, sadly not in time for this time round in Qatar, and that's where we go in a couple of races' time, as we end with a triple header with Las Vegas in a couple of Saturdays, then Qatar, then Abu Dhabi, as Max Verstappen looks to wrap up his 4th world title. We'll keep you across all of those races here on talkSPORT Driving, with driver interviews and loads of other stuff as well, including the start of the Formula E season with driver interviews and behind-the-scenes content. So make sure you hit subscribe on this channel if you haven't already, and I would recommend clicking that little bell as well, because every time we upload a new video, you'll get a little notification on your device, which I highly recommend.